you're just tuning in and wondering what the hell is going on in this video, well, you probably should watch the one that was before this and maybe even the teardown video to know how I got to this point. I'll post up a link to both down in the description so that you're able to go back through and figure out what's going on here. But basically, welcome. So, in this video's thing, we're going to get the frame cut down. Obviously, that's what we just got done. The front end is cut off. We're going to take these tabs off later. I'll do that off camera. And then we're going to put the bars in. And then this assembly is going to get turned around. And it's going to get mounted going this direction on the front. At that point, we should be able to mount up a plate, get a seat welded on this thing, and go from there. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so at this point, we're going to take and we're going to flip everything up. We're going to clamp the side rails onto the side, and we're going to use the two holes that are on the side here as guide rails for the framing, which is one of the nice things about using an AYP chassis is the fact that almost all of the factory drill holes and everything are pretty well standard for the last like 15-20 years. So anything you see me line up, you probably could do yourself. So we're going to get it flipped up. We're going to get the clamps on it. Of course, it's more fun when you use plastic clamps that randomly catch fire. And from there, we'll get to it. Alright guys, well you get the idea. Now we're going to flip it over and we're going to do the other side. And I'm not going to bother taking video of that because obviously if you can do one, you can do the other. So we're going to flip it and then we'll figure out the front end from there. Alright guys, so here we are with our piece that we cut off earlier. And if you were holding this the way it is in a tractor, it would sit like this. But what we're going to do is we're going to invert it. And we're going to turn it around like this. And we're going to set it down inside the frame rail, like such. Have this line up with the top pieces on either side, like that. And level it out. I'm going to clamp it across so that it can't move. And then we're going to weld it in place. Alright, so as you can see, we got it all clamped in. Our front axle pivot is to the front. We've got this piece mounted back here because in the future I want to be able to cut things in half and I want to be able to make an A-frame assembly. But that's later on down the road. For now, we just want to install the regular front axle. So we're going to get the welder up and running. We're going to tack down across, then we're going to flip it up. We're going to tack the underside. Then from there we'll get the axle mounted on the front and commence to fixing up some steering. Alright, so now that we have it at this point, we're going to flip over the axle, we're going to put it in, get the bolts put through, and then that way we'll be able to set up the steering assembly that's going to come down through here and go back and forth for direct steer. After that, we'll be able to get started on everything else. Hopefully by the time we're done with this video, we'll have a rolling chassis to work with. Alright, so at this point we've got it here. We're going to take the front axle, we're going to drop it in, and we're going to make sure that the connecting rod, the tie rod that goes all the way across, is on this side, and then put the bolt through, and then we'll get the whole thing flipped over, get some rear tires on it, and we should have a rolling chassis at that point. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys this. Apparently, I made a minor miscalculation. And what it is that on this axle, this side is actually longer than this side. So we've got a couple of choices. We can either rig it, and we can cut this side a little bit shorter, or we can do it the right way, and we can take this, pop the spindles, flip the whole thing, and put it in the right direction, which is what we're going to do here. Alright, so there we go. They're flipped over, they're put in. I'm going to flip it up on its side. I'm going to get the C-clips put on both tops along with the retaining washer. And then from there, we'll get the rear tires on. Don't really need to show you how to do that. We'll get it all flipped up and we should have a rolling chassis after that. Well guys, I'm going to have to call it good for tonight. I just wanted to show you a slight mock-up. Basically, you'll sit like this. The steering wheel is going to go right about here. And the reason being is because if you've been watching my series, this isn't about me. This build is about my son being able to come along with me when I run my mud mower. So the steering wheel is going to be right about here, and I haven't decided whether I'm going to do gas pedal and brake both on the same side or whether I'm going to make it singular foot. But anyways, rolling chassis is here, and engine is mocked up where it goes. Making good progress. Alright guys, so here's what's going to happen. Here's our gearbox out of a standard Craftsman 2 out of the 1990s. And what we've done is we've cut off the original control arm, which is here. And we're going to throw that aside. And then on the front, on this side, you'll find that you have your tie rod end connection that comes from this originally. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to weld it directly onto the tie rod end that comes across from both sides, and then we're going to take the original ball joint that connects from this to this, and we're going to weld it directly on to the bottom of this. And this is going to sit like this. And then that way we can cut this off and we can re-weld this piece on in order to adjust the height of the steering wheel wherever it is we need it. So, have you ever had one of those moments where you think you're really smart, you spend all kinds of hours making something, just to find out that you overlook something very simple and that you're an idiot? Well, that's what this is. See if you can figure out why I'm an idiot. If you haven't figured it out yet, let me show you. If I turn left, my tires turn right. And if I turn right, my tires turn left. So basically, by putting this gearbox here, I didn't realize it was just a single gear and it was going to end up inverting my rotation. So, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to cut all of this out. I'm kind of ticked off, so I'll probably use my plasma cutter and just cut some corners. And I'm going to have to make the unit direct steer, but in all honesty, kind of works out anyway because I needed to get this steering column a little bit further forward and I needed to get this dropped down a little. So when my son sits on it, his heels come out right about here. So it would be nice to get it a little bit further forward anyway. Alright, well, we're going to make a direct steer. A lot of you already know how to do that on a go-kart, so I'm not going to cover that, but basically I'm just going to undo all of this with the plasma cutter and put a direct steer in and call it good.